Hey guys, this is a new episode of Innovation in Insurance, and it's a book and author special. Two guests are two of the most renowned authors in the insurance industry. It's not Brian, it's not Rob, it's Theresa and me. Thank you, Theresa, for joining me and bringing your new book with us.
Well, thank you so much, Robin, for having me. It has been ages since we last spoke. So, really, really happy to be on your show today and chat a bit about, what is happening in insurance globally.
When did we meet the last time? Was it in Hong Kong 2019?
Yeah, I think so. It was Insuretech Insights in Hong Kong. Yeah, it has
Yeah.
really been a while. It's time
Yeah, it
that
was
we
like
catch up.
my last big trip.
And then we all know what happened, right? After
Yeah.
2019.
Thank God we almost are still the same, only meeting 10 kilos, 20 pounds more, but that's a story for a different show.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk today about your new book, The Future of Insurance. Sounds familiar like another author, but you will share what it has to do with that. And especially it's an Asia special, so we're going to talk a lot about Asia today. What are the new trends? What are customer behaviors? What are companies we all need to actually know about, what we don't? Yes, looking forward to that. But you also shared with me you're going to be at ITC in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So everybody who wants an autograph for your book can actually get one at ITC.
Yes, correct. Just let me know if you are coming. Also, let me know in advance in case you want a signed copy because obviously I have to pack them. But very happy to engage with anyone attending ITC and talk all things future of insurance.
Very good. Let's talk Asia. I think the term Asia is a little bit misleading. There is not the Asia where there's not the Americas or the Europe. Do they actually say the Europe? I'm not sure. So can you maybe, as a deep expert on the topic who have lived there for a long time and also active in the industry, what are like the big differences somebody that doesn't have a clue about the area or the region needs to know?
Yeah, it's a good point, right? And it's a bit naive to try and generalize Asia, right? It's like the most populous continent in the world, and I have lived in a few different countries. I've lived in Hong Kong, I lived in Bangkok in Thailand, I've lived in Indonesia in Jakarta, spent way too much time in Singapore, and the major difference is I think you find a very fragmented market in terms of culture, in terms of languages, but also in terms of economic development stages,
Yeah.
right? So if we talk insurance, you have countries like Indonesia, which has one of the lowest insurance penetration rates globally, right? It's below 2%.
Oh.
And I don't know the penetration rate for Germany actually, but the US has 12.4% and China even has 20%. So, you have countries like Indonesia, developing country or emerging country, large, young, tech savvy population, like over 50% of Indonesians are below the age of 30, right? But then you have countries like Japan, which is, not only one of the largest and most mature insurance markets, but, they face very different challenges with an aging population. Japan has actually the highest median age globally. And I think number two is Germany, number two or number three. So I guess
Let's not talk about German politics if that's okay, or I'm getting really angry and frustrated and begin to drink vodka at 3:20.
yeah. It is, it's a challenge, and I guess a lot of what we are seeing in Japan is a bit like a crystal ball into what we are facing in Germany,
Yeah.
with aging population and wealth mostly allocated with like the older generations and the younger generations often feeling a bit like left behind, especially by insurance companies. So that's like one of the stories I have in the book, and I really tried with this book to give an overview for people who have never been to Asia or maybe never
Yeah.
worked in the insurance industry in Asia, to really give a glimpse of what are the differences. So I cover companies from India with phone pay, again, like mature, bit maturer market than Indonesia, but still, very much emerging. Again, very young, tech-savvy population. I have examples from Singapore, from Malaysia,
Cool.
from Indonesia, from Hong Kong, Japan, and China. And also, the type of companies. I have Ping An in the book, which is one of the largest insurer in the world. In fact, is the second largest insurer globally and the largest motor insurer in the world. And then I have a startup which just started in June this year in Japan. So really a mix of different countries, different companies at different stages.
How did you choose the case studies of your book? Because I think one thing about your book that's super interesting is that you're not only talking about the meta trends in the region, but actually you have a deep dive into concrete use cases, actually, of real life example of the insurance industry. So how did you choose them?
That's a really good question. So you mentioned that already. The book is actually part of Brian Falchuk's The Future of Insurance series. So he has published 3 books on the US market. And his first one was an insurance incumbent. The second one was on startups. And then the third one is on like partnerships. So when I looked at the Asian market and, you only have a limited number of companies you can feature. And I did not want to have the constraint of like dividing between insurance carriers and, insurtech startups. Also, I think sometimes the lines are quite blurred today. Like if you have a company like Sing Life, which only started in 2017, is a licensed insurer, has acquired Aviva Singapore. What is it? Is it an insurtech? Is it a startup? Is it a insurance carrier? Anyway, so I thought, what is it that makes Asia unique? And I think it's the way that companies are designing products for the younger generation, how they are embracing alternative forms of distribution, right?
Okay.
And all these like
Share some
tech
secrets.
ecosystems. Sorry.
Share some secrets. How do they do it?
Yeah, it's I think it has a lot to do with the culture, to be honest. So if we take the example of India, right? So like you and I, we probably access the internet for the first time through like a, desktop computer, connected through the landline. And, this is how we
Like
first.
dieses
Yeah,
modern
exactly.
thing,
So, and
56K.
if we think about the internet, we think about, even today, like, being on a laptop and accessing the internet. And that's also how a lot of services in the, digital environment are still marketed. Like a lot of companies, they think about digital, like, accessing the internet through a computer. If you look at India, on the other hand, 10 years ago, there was only like 10% of the population having access to the internet. But with the smartphone, that rapidly changed. So a lot of people in India access the internet first time via a smartphone. So they think very differently about digital and digital services. So the example I have in the book with PhonePay, which is actually not an insurtech, it's a mobile payment platform, but they have added insurance to it, and they have this like mobile first approach. And I think that is really different. And also companies like Ping An in China, who have been at it for quite a while and really saw the opportunity of the introduction of the smartphone and digitization. So it's really a different mindset and like a leapfrogging of certain development stages we have seen in the West. And so I think in some of the areas, Asia is leading just because they don't have necessarily the legacy. And by legacy, I not only mean like technology constraints, but also legacy behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Ping An is a very good example because it is actually founded as a traditional insurer, and at some point the founder discovered what the Chinese are, or his market is maximum willing to spend actually on insurance products, and he then decided I want more. So he didn't whine up, nobody's buying more insurance, but he actually built services around it. And for me, Ping An is always a good example for European insurers, also American insurers that don't want to move. Say, guy, here's a traditional insurer who had a master plan and pushed through and prevailed. I really liked what you said in one half sentence for PhonePay, that you said, oh, it's not an insurtech, but it is actually a customer-facing service that added insurance. Isn't that actually a huge danger for the insurance industry when they're too slow that suddenly others become the customer facing application service and we're just, raw material?
Well, I think I do believe we see a bit of a shift, right? Because a lot of these like new players like phone pay and other digital platforms who are now starting to offer insurance, the advantage that they have is that they are very customer focused. They're really focused on customer needs. They're really good at designing user journeys that are seamless and frictionless, and that is something that the insurance industry, if I generalize, not has been very good at. But the question is, do you have to be good at everything, or do you just take advantage of these like, alternative forms of distribution and, plug into these systems? And, in the case of PhonePe, they are working with all the major insurance companies in India, right? And it's a huge opportunity for these insurers, but it is a mindset shift of not owning the customer and not owning at least the sales funnel, and don't have that control and giving away a bit of that control.
Yeah.
But I think, insurers definitely can benefit from that. And, letting someone who is excellent at, a certain part, in this case, mobile distribution, mobile first approach, user journey, and, let these companies take the lead.
Well, as a marketing agency, I love when people say, "Don't you want to outsource things you are not good at?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's give our we make the most of your marketing and social media budget." But all kidding aside, I think for an insurer, it's not dangerous if you have one or two or three partners doing that. But if you lose the connections to your customer completely, you are in big trouble, And I'm not talking about the letter of denying a claim settlement. That's not a fun interaction with a client.
Yeah.
So do you have some inspiring methods how players and companies in Asia keep actually in touch with their customer base?
Yeah, that's a good question. And just when you mentioned it, how important it is for insurers, regardless if they are engaging with these alternative forms of distribution, to still, have this contact directly with consumers. And one of the companies I feature in the book is 1Degree.
Yeah.
And 1Degree is the first startup, the first tech startup that was able to get a virtual general insurance license in the Hong Kong market. So
Okay.
Hong Kong has stopped giving out insurance licenses because they had way too many insurance carriers for, a population of maybe 7 million. So they were like, okay, we're not doing that anymore. And when the founders of 1Degree came together, and first they were looking at distribution, but they quickly realized they wanted to be in control of product design. They wanted to be able to react quickly to market changes. So they were like, okay, we want to start an insurance carrier, which is, super, super difficult, especially in a market that doesn't allow for, new carriers to come in. But they worked with the regulator and, contributed significantly to the Insurance Authority of Hong Kong issuing these virtual insurance licenses. So this allows new players to come in and exclusively distribute online, direct to consumers, because that's a channel that was lagging a bit behind in Hong Kong. So the regulator saw the opportunity. So now, if your only distribution channel is direct to consumers, you really want to make sure you have products and market them in a way that is meaningful for your consumers, for your customers. So what 1Degree is doing, they are applying social listening. They are, looking at social media. They are scanning blogs. They are, trying to understand what is it that consumers really need. They actually started with pet insurance, so they also partnered with veterinarian clinics, etc. And what I think is remarkable is that they look at that as just like the first step in product development. And the next step is launching the product and then learning in real time.
So it's actually talking or listening to the customer. So that's the start of product development, and not an actuary thinking about what a solution for a problem might be.
Exactly. And it's crazy. Like you would think that all companies are doing that, right? But the reality is that the insurance industry is still very much product driven. But 1Degree is looking at like, what is it? Where are opportunities? Where are like, needs, areas of risks that we can come in and help people. But then again, that's just the first step. And this is really important, right? Because also with traditional insurers, a lot of times the actuaries are, designing a product that they believe is relevant for, the industry, and pushing it out into the market, often very long product development cycles, pushing it out in the market, and then, nothing happens. If the product works or not, there's no immediate changes. Whereas One Degree is really looking at what is the initial feedback, how is, people are experience the user journey, what are the product features, and the real insights are only coming once they have launched a product, and then they are able to make tweaks on a, if needed, on a daily basis. And that is actually something I've heard from a lot of companies like Tune Protect in Malaysia, part of the Asia group. They also said, Rohit Nambia, the group CEO, he told me, like, I have no clue if a product is going to work until we launch it.
Theresa, most insurance C-suits don't know either. I can tell you a funny story, which what you share reminds me a little bit of the German family insurance in Germany, who also are super quickly able to react to the market. And for example, if Stiftung Warentest, which is the foundation, which is actually like the holy grail if you get a reward or award by them. So when they say, hey, this are our new criterias, then they can build actually a product that fits into that criteria. And they always, as a small insurer, they're always super successful with that. Like they win it every time. And if you are an insurer that needs 6 months or 12 months or 24 months for a product, that's a Houston, we have a problem. But I have another question. So you have lived a long time in the area. You have been in the insurance industry in Asia, even though I'm not allowed to say Asia. I understood that now. But in different Asian markets, and you're super known. You know a lot of people. You know a lot of companies. You've spoken a lot. And my big question is, and I know your book has it in it. Are there some hypotheses you draw from the use cases you included, but also those you actually did not?
Yeah, it was actually quite fascinating to see. So each of the case studies, like, 8 different companies, you have their case studies, you have the individual lessons learned for each case study. But then I was also sitting down and looking for these like overarching principles that apply for any organization. And, incredible enough, there are like 3 lessons that really apply for all of these companies. And again, keep in mind, these are companies operating in different markets, different cultures, different economic stages, different, maturity of the companies, like Ping An, one of the largest insurers in the world, and then, also featuring a lot of startups. But there are really 3 overarching principles that I guess apply to any company, regardless if you are working in Asia, regardless if you're a big insurance company, or if you're, a small startup. So, and we touched on this a little bit already. Like, one of the lessons is build a customer-focused business. It sounds really like trivial, and like I think everybody would agree. But the reality is that, and we touched on that, a lot of like product design is still, driven internally instead of listening to the customers. If we talk about user experience, another thing that insurers can really improve, and again, touching on that, you don't have to be excellent in everything. And that's another lesson that came in. Like, partnerships are so important, right? Like, focus on the things you are good at. And but at the same time, there are a great number of companies you can partner with, either if it is to enable you, to adopt new technologies, big drive in digitization, AI, etc., but also these alternative forms of distribution. I think it's still important to keep the touch to your consumers directly, but there are great ways to attract different market segments with alternative forms of distribution. And then the last lesson is embrace change. And I touched a little bit on it with, One Degree and, other companies I have in the book, really taking this, we launch a product and then we learn from it and we iterate. And if we see it doesn't work, then we pivot. And
Yeah.
that's part of their toolkit, and it's not seen as a failure. It is like a valuable lesson that, now and now you can move forward. And
Yeah,
instead of seeing this as a failure and burying a product and not really taking in the lessons learned, but really embracing this changing environment and taking the opportunities.
Yeah, but when we do our mistakes at our company, at our agency, then I always say, yes, great that we learn, but can we do it cheaper next time?
Yeah,
Why
of
do we have
course,
to
right?
do?
And there's a way to designing it that you can still like cost effective, and
Yeah.
the important thing is that you learn quickly from if something goes wrong, and that you apply that for the next opportunity, and the next opportunity you're better because you had
Yeah.
these lessons learned.
Theresa, one last question before I let you go. I know we have a lot of things to do. My last question is, what is the one thing everybody needs to know about the book that didn't make it into it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I'm deeply grateful to all the companies that are featured in the book. I actually spoke to a few others. I can't disclose their name,
Yeah.
but some companies don't feel comfortable talking about the lessons learned and maybe the hardships, but that's what is important if you tell a story, and you know that, like, just showing the successes and how everything is amazing, it's great, but there have been bumps in the road, and you have to be comfortable talking about that, because that's how we all learn, and that's how we make things valuable.
Yeah.
And again, like embracing change, embracing this like journey to it, and that's where the interesting part lies. And I'm quite happy that the companies I have in the book were open to also talk about the not so pretty things, but giving the whole insurance community therefore an opportunity to learn from that.
So I can't wait to get a grip on your book. Amazon tells me it can be here on Saturday, so that's good. Everybody else who has not ordered a copy yet, don't hesitate to do so. A great insight into the Asian market, and everybody who's at ITC should write Theresa before to get a hand-signed copy from her. So Theresa, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Robin. Always good seeing you.